we wanted to reduce the amount of water that we were using to produce these fish. Our runoff water is being irrigated out onto crops.
This shouldn't be possible. Israel took a place where nothing should grow, no rain, dry, lifeless, desert land. They turned it into one of the most profitable fish farms on earth by turning the harsh desert conditions that made the land useless into its greatest advantage.
Desert areas around the world, we use lots of water for irrigated agriculture. To me, it's crazy to only use that water once. I think wild seafood is going to have a harder time than domesticated aquaculture.
Sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what happened in Israel's Negev desert. But here's where it gets strange. What they use shouldn't even support life. The system is hidden, almost invisible, with 1 million fish flowing in the desert. So how did Israel pull this off? Let's uncover it, discovering the impossible. A high percentage of Israel, over 60%, isn't just dry. It's a complete desert without any farmland, grassland, or even the kind of dry land where something small can still grow. Israel's Negev desert falls into this category and looks like a place that should not support life at all. The ground is hard, pale, and cracked open, as if it's been broken for years. In summer, temperatures can rise above 45 degrees Celsius. Rainfall is very rare. Sometimes it comes once or twice a year. Sometimes it barely comes at all. And when it does, it disappears quickly into the dry earth, leaving almost nothing behind. For most of human history, people didn't build here because the land gave them no reason to stay. You can't farm without water. You can't grow food in soil that refuses to hold life. So for thousands of years, this desert remained what it looked like: empty, harsh, and impossible. That belief stayed strong for a very long time, until something changed. In 1973, a geologist named Eliezer Iser was working deep beneath the Negev desert. It wasn't anything unusual, just a routine job drilling into the ground to study rock layers and formations. But then, deep underground, something unexpected happened. At over 2,000 feet below the surface, the drill pushed through a thick layer of solid rock. And suddenly, everything changed. And this became exactly where the story begins. Water burst out. It rushed upward on its own, fast and forceful, like it had been waiting for that moment. The pressure built up underground over millions of years pushed it straight to the surface. It didn't feel real at first. How could a place this dry, this empty, be hiding something so important beneath it? But things got even more surprising. The water they found wasn't just any water. It was ancient, and scientists call it fossil water. Water that fell as rain thousands, even tens of thousands of years ago, back when this region had a completely different climate, before it turned into a desert. That means this water had been trapped underground for ages, untouched, sealed inside layers of rock. And not just that, it was a massive scale of water that was part of a huge underground system that stretched across multiple countries. A hidden reserve so large that it could supply water for generations, if it could actually be used. It felt like they had discovered an ocean buried beneath the desert. For a moment, it looked like everything had changed, but that hope didn't last long. Because finding water was only the beginning, the water found came with serious problems that made people question whether it was useful at all. And that's exactly where this story takes a turn, from something surprising to something almost unbelievable. The water nobody could use. The first problem this water came with was heat. Deep underground, about 2,300 feet below the surface, the Earth stops feeling like ground and starts feeling like a furnace. The water sitting there had been trapped for thousands of years, slowly heating up from the planet's inner energy. By the time it was discovered, it was sitting at around 99 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. That is not just warm water, that is the temperature of human blood. And in a place like a desert, that is a serious problem. You cannot drink it. You cannot use it to cool the soil. If it touches plant roots, it shocks them. Instead of helping crops grow, it stresses them immediately, like pouring boiling air onto something fragile. Then came the second problem: salt. As this water moved through layers of stone, it picked up minerals along the way. Not enough to taste like the ocean, but enough to matter. About 1/10 the salinity of seawater sounds harmless until you try to grow food with it. Plants do not think in percentages, they just perish. Seeing how dangerous this is, Israeli agricultural engineers ran tests on small experimental fields. At first, everything looked fine. Seeds sprouted, leaves appeared. There was hope. Then reality hit fast. Within 3 days, the plants started to struggle. Leaves turned pale again and weak. Growth slowed down almost completely. By the second week, most of the crops were gone. Nothing survived. That was the moment everything should have ended. The logical decision was simple: close the well, move on, forget it. But that is not what happened. And instead, people started thinking differently with lots of unanswered questions. If this water could not be used in the usual way, maybe the usual way was the problem. Years later, in the early 2000s, something unexpected began to take shape in the Negev desert. Two groups, Kibbutz Mashabe Sadeh and Aquatech Fisheries, decided to try something bold. They didn't just want to test the water again, they wanted to build a system around it. So they started construction. Big earthen ponds, concrete tanks, long stretches of open farming space carved into the desert itself. Wells were drilled deeper into the aquifer. Pumps were installed. Aeration systems were set up to keep the water moving and alive. Instead of forcing the desert to behave like a normal farm, researchers changed their question. They stopped asking how to fix the environment. They started asking what kind of life already fits it. That shift made them look at different species, mostly fish that could handle stress and change. The fragile and high-maintenance ones were clearly out of the picture at this point. Barramundi was one of the fish introduced. It naturally lives where rivers meet the sea, where conditions are always changing. Fresh water one moment, salty the next. It handles that shift without breaking down. Tilapia was another. It can survive in water with high salt levels that would affect most fish. It has a broad, flat body and a small mouth. Its scales are tough and its flesh is mild, white, and easy to cook. It thrives in warm, low-oxygen water, tolerates high salt levels, eats plant-based feed, and resists disease naturally, making it one of the best and cheapest fish to farm here. Sea bass was also chosen. It moves between freshwater and saltwater during its life without trouble. It is silver-scaled with a streamlined body, sharp fins, and firm white flesh that commands high prices in European markets. It is naturally built to handle both freshwater and saltwater throughout its life cycle. It grows steadily in warm temperatures, has strong disease resistance, and adapts quickly to changing water conditions without losing its quality or growth rate. All of them had one thing in common. They were built for difficult conditions, and that is what made everything start to make sense. However, within just a few months of expanding the system, the Negev farms hit a problem that no fish operation ever escapes. At this time, it was obvious that the real enemy wasn't equipment failure, salt, water, fish type, or lack of space. It was something slower, quieter, and far more dangerous now. The silent troubler. The silent trouble was waste, the invisible buildup no one noticed at first, slowly growing inside the system, turning success into a hidden threat, waiting to break everything they have managed to build. It always starts the same way, invisible at first, then it builds. Each barramundi eats around 3% of its body weight every single day. Now imagine 100,000 fish doing that non-stop inside a single pond. All that food has to go somewhere. And where it goes is the water. What's left behind is not just dirt, it's chemistry turning against itself. At this point, ammonia becomes the first warning sign. Even at extremely small levels, around 2 parts per million, it becomes dangerous. It starts by attacking fish gills. Then it spreads deeper, damaging nerves and weakening the immune system. But ammonia doesn't stay alone for long. Slowly, it brings along something else when broken down. Bacteria in the water break it down into nitrite. That sounds like progress, but it is still a problem. Then it shifts again into nitrate. Less obvious, still trouble, and with every step, the water becomes less like a home and more like a trap. Left unchecked, the system does something simple and terrifying. It battles with itself. The surprising part is that most fish farms deal with this in 2 ways. The first is technology heavy. Filters with machines, constant airflow, sand systems, beneficial bacteria reactors, and UV lights that try to clean what keeps coming back. It was going to work, but it came at a price. Huge pumps running all day can use as much electricity as dozens of homes, and maintenance alone can cost tens of thousands every year. The second option is even simpler and worse for the planet. Dump it. In coastal fish farms across places like Norway, Chile, and Scotland, polluted water is flushed straight into the ocean. Out of sight, out of mind, but the sea doesn't forget. That waste triggers algae explosions. The water turns green, thick and lifeless, and makes oxygen disappear, with the entire marine zones collapsing silently underneath the surface. But in the Negev desert, neither option existed. There was no ocean nearby to dump anything into, and even if there was, wasting water in a desert like this would be unthinkable. Every drop had value, and as such, nothing could be thrown away, so the system was cornered. If they did nothing, the fish would be gone in their own waste. If they used standard solutions, the cost would break them. Either way, failure was coming fast. And that's when something strange happened. Instead of asking how to remove the waste, someone asked a different question entirely. What if the waste wasn't useless at all? The moment everything changed, the waste produced, ammonia, is no doubt dangerous for fish and can quickly end them when in high amounts. But for plants, it is something completely different. It is not dangerous. It is food. It is nitrogen. And nitrogen is one of the most important things a plant needs to grow. Now think about that for a second. Around the world, farmers depend on synthetic nitrogen fertilizer to grow crops. This fertilizer is not simple to make. It is produced in huge industrial plants using natural gas through a process called Haber-Bosch. It is so energy heavy that it uses about 2% of all the energy on Earth just to make plant food. And here, in the Negev desert, something unexpected was happening. The fish were producing nitrogen naturally, constantly, and without machines, factories, or cost. What looked like waste initially was actually valuable. Right here was the turning point. The engineers suddenly saw the truth. This was not a pollution problem. It was a system problem. The fish were not producing something useless. They were producing exactly what nearby plants needed to grow. So instead of cleaning the water or throwing it away, they made a simple but powerful decision. They connected it, and pipes were built straight from the fish ponds into nearby fields without any middle step, waste stage. This time, just direct flow. Here's how the flow came. The water left the pond slightly cooler now after passing through the system and moved straight into the soil around crops like olive trees and date palms. This wasn't all. The soil did something important. It didn't just absorb the water, it processed it. Bacteria in the soil broke down ammonia into forms plants could use. The tree roots pulled in nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium slowly and steadily. Nothing was rushed or wasted. Then all of a sudden, the results came in and they surprised everyone with a loop no one saw coming. The closed loop nobody saw coming. The olive trees started growing faster than expected. On test plots at Kibbutz Mashabe Sadeh, yields went up by about 15 to 20% compared to normal farming methods. The reason was simple. Traditional fertilizer hits the soil all at once. A big chemical dump. Plants can only take a little at a time, so the rest washes away. It leaks into groundwater, spreads into rivers, and causes damage far beyond the farm. But fish waste works differently. It breaks down slowly, moving step by step, then proceeds to feed the soil over time instead of overwhelming it. The plants get a steady supply instead of a sudden shock, and that steady flow makes growth stronger and more stable. Then came another surprise, as most people were worried about salt in the water destroying everything. But olive trees and date palms are not fragile plants. They come from regions where salty soil is normal. They can handle salt levels up to around 5,000 parts per million. The water being used in the system was around 3,000, which was well within range. Not only did the trees survive, but they also adapted easily to the new conditions. And something even more interesting happened. Under mild stress, plants change. They protect themselves by concentrating sugars and oils. That means better taste. The dates became sweeter. The olive oil became richer and more flavorful. But the biggest discovery came later, after years of observation. The salt problem never got worse. In fact, it started to reverse. The trees were pulling salt into their leaves. When old leaves fell during pruning, the salt left the system with them. Slowly, the soil was becoming cleaner over time. The system was doing something no one planned. It was fixing itself as everything was connected now. Water came from underground, fed the fish, carried nutrients to the fields, fed the trees, passed through the soil, and returned cleaner than before. At this point, it was obvious that nothing was wasted and nothing was lost. Fish feed the water, water fed the trees cleaned the soil, and the soil gave the water back again. A desert system that once felt broken was now running in a perfect circle. But one thing is important. None of this would matter if the numbers didn't work. Because in the real world, ideas don't survive on inspiration. They survive on cost, scale, and whether the system can actually pay for itself. This brings us to a deeper look at the cost. Israel's fish system and cost. Looking at the numbers, let's start with water. Fresh water from desalting plants in Israel costs between 60 and 70 cents per cubic foot. Now, zoom out. A small crop field of about 2.5 acres can demand around 88 million gallons of water every year. By the time you add it all up, just the water alone can cost around $7,000 before a single seed even goes into the ground. For most farmers, that kind of math is a major loss. But the Negev system was not using fresh water. It was using something else entirely, brackish water from deep underground, from the Nubian aquifer, which costs only about 5 to 10 cents per 35 cubic feet. That is nearly a 90% drop in cost. Not because of new technology, but because the hard work was already done decades ago when the wells were drilled. After that, nature itself does part of the job. Underground pressure helps push the water upward. Less energy, less cost, less friction in the system. Then the structure of the idea becomes clear. The fish farms pull the water up. The fish live in it. They naturally warm it. They naturally enrich it. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is treated as single use. Then that same water moves again as it flows into crop fields, and right here is where everything flips, because now the water is no longer just water, it carries nutrients. It carries organic material as it becomes both irrigant and fertilizer at the same time. One system feeds another. No separate supply chain, no separate waste system, no extra disposal cost. In a normal setup, waste is a problem you pay to remove. But here, waste becomes something you can sell, something bringing in profits daily. Today, farms across the Negev produce more than 3,000 tons of fish every year. Barramundi grown in Israel is exported to places like France, where it competes directly with fish from Australia and Southeast Asia. But there is a catch. Production costs are lower, not because of cheaper labor, but because the system removes one of the biggest expenses in aquaculture: energy for heating water. Here, the desert provides that heat for free. And that changes everything and draws attention from other dry countries. Egypt has already started pilot projects in its western desert. Jordan is studying the model. Across regions facing water stress, this idea is being watched closely because it offers something rare. Carbon is another material that is just as important and cost-effective too. Using geothermal heat instead of fuel-based heating avoids roughly 200 tons of carbon emissions per system every year. On top of that, the crops growing in this system also remove carbon from the air. A plantation of about 25 acres with around 1,000 trees can absorb roughly 66,000 pounds of carbon dioxide annually. Put together, the system does something unusual. It actively removes carbon from the atmosphere, and it becomes carbon negative. So the Negev didn't become productive in spite of being a desert. Rather, it became productive because it is a desert with everything adding up. The heat that made water unusable became perfect for warm water species. The salt that destroyed normal crops became ideal for trees built for Mediterranean soil. The waste that almost collapsed the system became fertilizer. Nothing about the land changed. What changed was that instead of asking how to fix the desert, the system asked what the desert already does well, and that shift is the real reason it works. Today, about 1 million fish are alive in the Negev desert. They were never impossible. They were just waiting for the right way to keep working. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.